I'm Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, and this is Mr. Saltwater Tank TV. Today, I'm going to walk you through my new 375-gallon tank. Now, this tank is a big boy. It's 8 feet wide, 30 inches tall, and 30 inches front to back. And if you've ever built a big tank or taken on a large project, you know that if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. So did something go wrong during the process of me getting this tank? Absolutely. And here's the story. Plan A was to have the 375 delivered the Friday before the Monday that we moved into this house. That way the whole house would be empty. I'd have plenty of room to maneuver the tank and get it in place. Then on Saturday, I was going to move the 235 from the old place and set it down right here. Now you're probably asking, Mark, why tear down the 235 and set it up again when you know you're immediately going to tear it back down to build a 375? Well, the answer is that I had some fish in quarantine. I wanted some of these fish to all go into the big tank at the same time, so I decided to delay a couple days to make sure that my fish got my full 30 days of quarantining that I recommend. So, tank was supposed to be here on Friday, right? Did that happen? No. And why not? Because the shipper lost it. Yeah, you heard me right. They lost an 8 foot wide by 30 inch tall by 30 inch front to back tank that weighs nearly 1,000 pounds empty. How do you lose an 8 foot tank that weighs that much? I don't know, but it just happened. Boof, out of thin air, the tank was gone. For 3 days, the shipper had no idea where the tank was. At the end of 3 days, as quick as it was gone, out of thin air, boof, the tank magically shows up again. At this point, fantastic. Ship the tank, get it here. Tuesday night, the tank shows up. Wednesday, I call the shipper and say, when are you delivering the tank? And they go, we don't have anyone to deliver the tank today. Great. Another day lost. Thursday rolls around. I call them and say, when are you delivering the tank? And they say, we'll get back to you. Yeah, right. Thursday around 12 o'clock, no one's called me. I said, this is not happening today. I get on the phone. So, when are you delivering the tank? Well, when you called earlier, we thought that you would set up delivery. Great. They said, we'll deliver it Friday between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. Here's a hint for you. No one does anything on Friday afternoon. Starting Friday at like 10 in the morning, people start checking out. Deals don't get signed on Friday afternoon. People don't pick up the phone. Big tanks don't get delivered. I said, this is not going to happen. Sure enough, Friday at 3 p.m., my phone rings. Mr. Callahan, that's me. Are you sitting down? Not a good way to start a phone conversation. The tank will not fit on the lift gate of our truck. Wouldn't you think to measure the tank and the lift gate to make sure it works before you load it on the truck? Apparently not, because it won't fit. They say, okay, just come get it. We'll reimburse you for any expenses. I say, fine. 8:30 at night, I go rent a U-Haul, drive over there, and pick up the tank. Now it's dark, I'm tired, obviously frustrated at this point. I just strap the tank down, bring it home. I say, you know what? I'll get my buddies from the Middle Tennessee Reef Club, come out, we'll move it in on Saturday morning. We'll be done with this whole fiasco. Saturday morning, I wake up, look outside, and it is snowing. There's snow and ice all over the tank. And there's no way I'm going to move this tank, let alone any tank, when there's snow and ice on the ground. So, Monday rolls around, the snow and ice is now melted off. I go outside and look at the stand and go, that looks a little short. The stand was supposed to be 36 inches tall. It was 30 inches tall. Oops. I used a reputable tank maker. They agreed to take care of me and express ship me a new stand. However, notice that the tank is sitting on a trailer in my front yard. The HOA doesn't allow for a trailer to be parked in your front yard for days on end, so I have to hire movers Monday morning to come unload the tank so I can return the trailer. Now here's a hint for you about hiring movers to move tanks. A lot of them won't touch aquariums. I called 10 movers and 8 of them nearly hung up on me when I uttered the word aquarium. Luckily the guys from 2 Men in a Truck said, no sweat, we'll move that tank for you. And they did a fantastic job. A 6-man crew showed up and moved the tank and stand off the trailer, then put the tank on dollies and carefully wheeled it inside. Clearance was tight, but the tank fit through the front door and then was wheeled into the room where it would sit. Notice my 235-gallon tank right over there. Yep, the new tank had to clear it, and it did so by a couple inches due to my careful planning. Now my new 375-gallon tank could sit safely inside, on the floor, mind you, until the stand showed up. Wednesday rolls around, the new stand is here, and the 2 Men in a Truck guys come back and put the stand in place, and then put the tank on the stand. To say the tank was heavy was an understatement, but with 6 suction cups and 6 movers, we got the job done, and now I can continue with my build, right? No, not quite. Why not? Well, it's right before I was about to leave town for a week. I wasn't going to build this big tank and then immediately leave. I wanted to have my tank set up with a period of time, that way I could get used to it. That way if anything went wrong, I'm not sitting there going, well, I think it was like this and you need to do that. I wanted this tank to have some time to break in before I left. So, delay the whole tank build yet another week. 2.5 weeks after the tank was supposed to be set up, I actually get it set up. Now, here's what the end result looks like. I'm going to take you through my build from the top down. Now you notice the tank has a canopy on it. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I want to start with the lighting. Over this tank I have 4 Ecotech Marine Radion Pros, and they're sitting 16 inches off the water line. Now why so high when Ecotech recommends 8 inches? Well, the answer is that I wanted a tall canopy. This tank is very wide. For me to get all the way to the back, if I had a short canopy, I literally have to like crawl in here to work on the tank. That's annoying, so I opted for a taller canopy. That made the lights 16 inches off the water line. However, there's plenty of light coming out of these fixtures. Even though the lights were far off the water line, all I gotta do is turn them up to get plenty of light, even all the way down at the sand bed. So, how did I mount these lights? Well, I made my own DIY rail kit. Here's how that project looks. Instead of using Unistrut, which to me looks cheap, big, and bulky, I use Bosch Rexroth 20 for the rails. Now the Rexroth rails are made of aluminum, so they won't rust, and they're low profile, only 20 millimeters square. The best part is that they have a slot in them that a screw head fits perfectly into. The screw threads into the Radion, and the screw head slides into the slot on the Rexroth rail. Then I had a local metal shop fabricate up some aluminum brackets to hold the rails in place. These brackets also won't rust, and they give a smooth, clean look. The end result is a rust-proof rail system that gives me the freedom to position the Radions wherever I want. Since they're sitting on those screws, I can easily slide them into position, get rid of any dark spots I might have in my tank, or if I want to accentuate a certain piece of coral, just slide the Radion over, or I can slide it right on back. This will be particularly useful if I ever decide to re-aquascape my tank. If I had committed to having that Radion just at this position, but my rocks were slightly over, well, then I have to reposition that Radion. In this case, all I gotta do is just slide it over. Very easy, and it looks great as well. There's a look at the lighting for the tank, but what about the canopy that the lighting sits on? Well, I got a custom canopy designed with one thing in mind: accessibility. Let me show you what I mean, because it's really slick. I can access all the sides of the tank, even though there's a canopy on it, because all of these sections completely open up. There you have it. Sides of the tank, front of the tank, back of the tank. I have access to it all. And all these panels stay up because I had them put in these little stays here. And the canopy doesn't fall over because it's all balanced. Nothing drives me nuts more than having a canopy that has these small little access doors. And the best you can do is maybe get your hands in there, and that's all. I wanted access. Canopy maker did a fantastic job. I love this thing. Now let's have a look at the in-tank circulation. On my tank I have 6 pumps providing the in-tank circulation. 2 Ecotech Marine MP60s, 1 on each wall, and 4 MP40s spread throughout the tank. At first glance, this many pumps may look like overkill, but of course, there's a strategy behind it. The first piece of the strategy in dealing with in-tank circulation was to manage the width of this tank. This tank is wide. It's 30 inches from the front to the back. Now most people will tell you, hey, just stick one power head right here in the center, make it a high flow power head while you're at it, and you'll be good to go. However, if I did that, I have a little bit of a dead spot on the front of the tank and a little bit of a dead spot back here in the back corner. So to get rid of those dead spots, I put a lower flow MP40 in this back corner. And this lets me put a lower flow power head, which is going to be closer to the rockwork that'll eventually house hard coral. If I hit those corals with a high flow power head, I can literally blow the flesh right off of them. So the low flow MP40 goes back here, get rid of the dead spot, make sure I'm not blasting my corals, which let me put my high flow MP60 up here at the front of the tank. This works into the second part of the strategy of dealing with in-tank circulation, which is managing the 8-foot width of the tank. I got a long span to get across here. The high flow MP60s get that job done. So I've got an MP40 on the side, another MP40 on this side, an MP60, an MP60, giving me cross flow. What about flow from the back of the tank to the front? Well, that's important. I wanted that too. That's where the last two MP40s come in. They're sitting on the back wall, pushing water from back there up front. Now, all these pumps aren't always just doing their own thing. They're actually talking to one another, working in concert. How do they do that? Well, that's where the beauty of the EcoSmart comes in from Ecotech Marine. One pump is gearing up, another one can be gearing down to give me a gyre flow. And the pumps in the back are in something called EcoSmart mode that continue to give me random flow. I want a nice kind of dishwasher, washing machine motion going on in here. All these pumps get that job done and they get rid of any dead spots. Now, these pumps also just aren't sitting in the same mode throughout the day. I actually vary the mode and vary the intensities throughout the day, and I do that automatically. How do I do that? Well, the answer is right down here. I communicate with the EcoSmarts wirelessly, mind you, through the WXM box that's plugged into my Neptune system, Apex. The WXM will tell the EcoSmarts to change modes at certain times throughout the day, as well as change intensities. And of course, if I hit a feed button on the Apex, those EcoSmarts will turn off or spin down. It's also really useful when I'm doing water changes as well. What else is down here? Well, I have the PM2 module. This is a salinity probe. This lets me monitor the salinity of the tank, lets me know if anything is getting out of whack. Neptune has had this probe and module out for several years now, and it's been working great. Underneath that is PM3 module. This is the dissolved oxygen monitoring. It's a little bit of overkill, a little bit more of a toy, but hey, I wanted to see what it's like to monitor dissolved oxygen in my tank, so I gave it a try. Energy bar 8 turns certain outlets on and off, and then the high wife acceptance factor module, the advanced leak detection. This will let me know if there's any water on floor, which would come from a leak in my tank or any of my plumbing. Turn certain things on or off, send me an email and a text message so I can do what I need to do to keep that wife happy. Very easy sell. You say, honey, I'm gonna get a controller to let me know if any water spills around the tank. She's likely gonna say yes, hence the term high wife acceptance factor. Of course, I have the Neptune Apex brain sitting on here as well. Why is all this on the floor? Well, I put it on this piece of plywood. Makes it very easy to move in and out when I need to film for Mr. Saltwater Tank TV. Ideally, this whole board would be mounted to the wall, but again, I'm in a rental house. I don't want to put a lot of holes in the wall that I have to patch, and I don't want to be crawling behind my tank every time I might have to do some filming for my show. So for now, it sits on a board. Everything looks nice and neat because it's mounted here. I like seeing the wires running around as long as they're tucked in tight. Makes for a cool look. More importantly though, I have my whole tank automated, have everything controlled. Lets me know if something's going wrong, even when I'm not here, which is very important considering how much I'm on the road. There's a look at the cool electronics on my tank. Now let's go downstairs and have a look at the chemical, mechanical, and biological filtration happening underneath my tank. The water gets underneath my tank via two 1.5-inch drains that lead into the My Reef Creation sump that I'm reusing from my 235-gallon tank. Now, those of you who have been asking, when am I going to do a full Mr. Saltwater Tank TV review of the sump? Well, that's coming. I'm wanting to give the biomedia, that's Seachem's Matrix Media by the way, wanted to give this a long-term test, so I'm not ready to form an opinion on it just yet. So while I don't have an opinion on the biomedia, I can tell you that the sump is top-notch. It's easily the most well-built sump I've ever owned and I've ever seen. This thing is solid. It weighs 80 pounds empty. When I moved it from my 235-gallon tank to this tank, I had to get suction cups to haul it out from underneath the tank. And while I had it out, I hauled it outside, gave it a good rinse down. I was able to tip it on its side, put it on the edge without any concerns about it cracking and breaking because this thing is so solid. Now, these sumps don't come cheap, but as the saying goes, you can be cheap or you can be good, but you can't be both. In this sump sits my Hydor Performer 2005 recirculating skimmer, and I've made a slight change with the skimmer. I went ahead and added a dedicated pump to feed the skimmer. Now, why did I do that? Well, the reason is because I put a biopellet reactor on the tank. So by the time I was feeding the biopellet reactor and the two meaty reactors that I'll talk about in a minute, I wasn't getting the flow into the skimmer that I wanted. Now, I could have upgraded my return pump, but I had an extra pump sitting around that happened to match up for what the skimmer requires, so I went ahead and added it to the skimmer. So the skimmer is on its own dedicated pump right now, which leaves a Water Blaster 5000 return pump to run the biopellet reactor and then my two meaty reactors. Oh, and while I'm down here, of course I have my GHL standalone doser, which is dosing calcium and magnesium for the tank. Now, you heard me talk about the two meaty reactors. What is that about? Well, come over here and I'll show you. When I first started the 375-gallon tank, I had just a bulk resupply dual media reactor on here. Now, I knew that this reactor wouldn't hold enough media for this size tank, but I wanted to give it a shot and see what I got. As expected, I couldn't keep phosphate levels down without adding more GFO, so I added the bulk resupply jumbo reactor here to get me enough GFO to bring my phosphate levels down where I wanted them. As the biopels kick in, I don't doubt that phosphate levels will come down, and I should be able to drop off the dual media reactor, which is nice because you can see I've got a whole bunch of tubing going back and forth that I would like to get rid of and just run the jumbo reactor. So there's the sump, there's the reactor part of it. What's this big thing? Well, this is my 12-gallon top-off container. Now there's a catch to this bad boy, which is that underneath it there's a drain, the bottom part of this container. This is nice as the water level drops, and I'm adding calc to my tank. I'm not doing it yet, but I will in the future. I can easily take this container out, pull the plug, drain out the calc sludge, and refill it. So here's the top-off water for the RODI water. Where do I make RODI water? Well, that's in the other room. Let me show you. Welcome to my dedicated fish room. Okay, not quite. A little tight in here. The room where the fish tank sits actually used to be a garage, and this was the utility room. I got a water heater right over here, but I do have enough room to have my RODI holding barrel. This is a barrel that holds 50 gallons worth of water, and then my mixing barrel right behind me, that holds 40 gallons of water. Now I have a Tunzi 107302 water pump that I had sitting around that pushes the water around, and with this connection here, I can hook up my hose, push water into the other room to refill the tank when I'm doing a water change or refill that top-off container that you just saw. Speaking of water changes, how do I get water out of the tank? Well, I have a Cobalt MJ1200 pump sitting around, plugs into a piece of tubing, and then the water heater has a drain right here. I just push the tubing down the drain, water goes straight out to the street and into the sewer. So it's not totally perfect. I don't have piping through the wall where I can do a water change without breaking down any pumps, but I'm okay with that. One, this is a rental house. I don't want to drill any holes in the wall that I then have to patch. And two, I like getting my hand down in the sump, sucking things out of there, and getting my hands dirty working on the tank. That's a joy for me. I set up the tank intentionally that way. I'm okay with it. But I do have somewhat of a dedicated fish room. It's nice to have these big holding barrels, no more hauling buckets around, thanks to the Tunzi pump and the drain on the floor. There's a look at the hardware on my 375-gallon tank. Now what about all the livestock? Well, I'm going to save that for a future Mr. Saltwater Tank TV episode. Now don't worry, I'm not going to make you wait months on end for me to get that show out. I'll have it out very soon. And if you're subscribed to my website or you've purchased one of my books at MrSaltwaterTank.com, you're going to be the first to know when that show is out. In fact, those of you that are subscribed, you've already seen sneak peeks of my tank already. So if you want to be the first to know when the show's out, and potentially see some sneak peeks as well, download my Tank Personality Report or pick up any of my books at MrSaltwaterTank.com. Till next time, I'm Mark Callie and Mr. Saltwater Tank. This has been Mr. Saltwater Tank TV. Have a good one, enjoy your tanks, and know your tank personality. I'm gonna go stare for a little bit. See you later.